Hello, Helen here, welcome to my channel. Today's card I'm going to be just doing a simple bouquet in a vase. I'm using this Altenew Versatile Vases stamp set, which I've had for a little while, and I for some reason have been putting off using it, but I'm going to do the card today. I'm not sure why. And I'm going to be using this Antique Roses stamp set for the flowers that are going to be in the vase. It's such a beautiful set. The roses are just gorgeous. It's a layering set, and you just see the rose come to life as you do the different layers. So I'm going to do a set of roses to go in the vase for this card. I decided I wanted to put something in behind the vase of flowers, but I didn't want anything with colour, as the flowers are going to be enough colour on the card. So what I'm going to do is just do some texture paste over a stencil, white on white, just so it gives a little bit of a design but without being colourful. So I've got this memory box stencil called Flourish, and I'm going to do a card panel with just an area of the texture paste on that. I'm using this golden light moulding paste because I went to use my Tim Holtz texture paste and it all dried up, so that's just what I've got to work with, and this just comes from an art shop, but if you've got any texture paste then just use that. I've stuck down the stencil with some repositionable spray on the back just so that it holds it down onto the card, and I've stuck the card with painter's tape onto a board just so nothing moves, and I'm just going to scoop some of the paste out onto the stencil, and then I'm using this deco foil, it's called a Stencil Buddy, which just helps spread the paste over the stencil in a nice even fashion. So I'm just going to do that, and I want it to have quite rough edges. I don't want it to be very precise down the edges or anything, so I'm just making kind of vaguely oval design with it. And then once I've spread it where I want to have the paste, I can scoop the rest back into the jar, and then I can wipe the Stencil Buddy with a baby wipe, and then get the stencil off the piece of card. So I'm just taking it all off the board, peel the stencil off, and you can see where the stencil is in the middle part of the front card panel. The next thing I'm going to do is do my layered stamping. This antique rose set comes with two big sized roses. I'm going to do the slightly smaller one of the two, and I'm going to do it in 3 different colorways, one in mauve, one in yellow, and one in the red Cosmos set, and also 3 different leaves. So I'm just going to show you doing one of the roses with the different layers, and then I'll go ahead and do the other 2 because it's just more or less the same process. I'll have a full list of all the colours that I'm using in the Altenew Crisp Inks over on my blog. I'll have the link to that in the description underneath the video. And I am trying to start putting the list of all the materials that I'm using underneath the video as well, but I keep forgetting to do it, so hopefully I will this time. Now that this first layer has stamped quite blotchy, but it does end up smoothing out in the end, and you don't notice that blotchiness. The ink soaks into the paper and fills in a lot of that, so don't be alarmed when these inks do that. In this stamp set, the layers are very easy to line up. I think the Altenew layering stamps have got better and better as they've gone along for having prime areas where you match them on all the stamp layers, and they work just beautifully. So there's the last layer of the leaves going on. I've ended up doing a fourth colour with the blue series because I've got an idea for a second card. So that's all the colours finished, and now I'm just going to fussy cut them all out. I won't show you that because I'm quite a slow cutter. I really enjoy it, but I'm quite a slow cutter. While the misty's out, I'm going to go ahead and stamp the vase. So I'm using Versafine Onyx black ink because it stands up to watercolouring, and I'm using Strathmore Bristol smooth watercolour paper for that. And once I've stamped it, and I'm going to heat set it with the heat gun, I'm going to just use a little bit of tumbled glass distress ink on a acrylic block and some water in a paintbrush, and I'm just going to very loosely watercolour some water into the vase, and then I'll heat set that to dry it. The next thing I'm going to do is just stamp some stems into the vase that my roses will be on, just using the stem out of this wallpaper art stamp set. I've only got 2 stamp sets that have stems, so the other one's quite a bit thicker stem, so this one will be alright. Not exactly a rose stem, but it'll give the illusion of stems that the roses belong to. And next I'll fussy cut it out, just going around right next to the line. At first I thought I was just going to leave the stems, just cut either side of the group of stems at the top, and you could quite easily get away with that and that would be fine, but I ended up going back and cutting the middle parts of the stems out with the craft knife, and then went back and just coloured them in with a Copic green marker. One thing I always like to do when I've cut right next to the stamp line is go around with a Sharpie or a black pen of some kind and just draw around the edge part of the cutout piece, because it just finishes it off and you don't see the white if you've gone slightly crooked or anything. It just helps neaten the whole thing up. So I have my vase ready to go. I have my flowers stamped and cut out. I've got the leaves cut out, and I've also mounted the stenciled panel onto a card base, and that's ready to go. So now I can just start putting it all together. So I'll stick down my vase first, leaving enough room for a sentiment that I've stamped out of that same vase set, and I'm just going to put the roses on above the stalk part of the vase, just with some foam tape stuck on the back. So I'll stick down the 3 roses, and then I'll go in and pop the leaves in underneath, so they won't be raised, they'll be just slightly further back, and that's the arrangement done. The final touch, I'm just going to pop a few of the pretty pink posh sparkling clear sequins just dotted around. I've got 2 different sizes, I think they're 6mm and 2mm, some tiny wee ones. So I'll just dot a few of those around the card just to give a little bit of sparkle, and that's that card finished. Now for the second card, which is definitely an easier card for those more beginners, I've just stamped the single vase from that same set directly onto a card panel, and then I've ended up putting a little bit of masking down the right hand side of the vase and just brushing with this sponge dauber and some distress ink just across the vase, just to give the appearance of some water, and stuck one stem into the vase, and then I'm just going to put the blue rose that was left over and a leaf raised on some foam tape on that, and that's just very simply then trimmed out so that it's just slightly smaller than the card base and stuck down directly onto the card base. Excuse me. So that's a much simpler version of a vase of flowers that you could do if you didn't want to do all the stenciling background that I've done on this first card. The second card I actually made into a sympathy card, but it could just as easily be a birthday or a thank you or a hello or any type. It's just a really versatile design. I'll leave you looking at some photos, and then I'll have a couple of ideas of videos at the end of this video. So thanks for joining me today. I really enjoyed your company, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Please like, share and subscribe if you'd like to, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.